week 4 of the fantasy football season, and his wide receivers start sits and out to the starts. Tyler Lockett, he's a start for me this week. I know he's coming off a ball game where he didn't do much for the Seahawks team versus Carolina Panthers in week 3, but Tyler Lockett, we know is a big play wide receiver. Him and Geno Smith over the last couple seasons have had a good rapport, and right this week here versus a weak Giants secondary with a lot of rookies in it, and most likely a rookie covering them in this ball game. I think the veteran Lockett's going to get open, make some plays, and it wouldn't be surprising to me if he has at least anywhere from 12 to 15 fantasy points in PPR leagues. Next starts Joshua Palmer of the Los Angeles Chargers. So Joshua Palmer is going to step in now, looks like, as the number 2 wide receiver, well, at least in an expanded role here for this Charger team. Now with Mike Williams out for the year with a torn ACL. So Joshua Palmer, he came in later on in that ball game and he had 4 catches, 66 yards, and found the end zone. And last season was a good year for Palmer, where he was filling in for Keenan Allen the majority of the season. So now in this high-powered offense with the Chargers, and new offensive coordinator Kellen Moore really getting that ball down the field, a lot of play calls. We've seen it with Allen and Williams with some monster games early in the season. So right now, Joshua Palmer, he's definitely a start this week here, and a guy that could really roll versus a pretty weak Las Vegas Raiders secondary. Next starts Courtland Sutton of the Denver Broncos. So Courtland Sutton's been the number 1 target so far here for Russell Wilson the first 3 games of the season. And Courtland Sutton, we know he's been a big play receiver. We know he's had injuries which have definitely held him back over the first few seasons of his NFL career. But this week here, a good matchup with the Chicago Bears that just can't stop anyone. These are probably 2 of the worst teams in the league, and I think Courtland Sutton can have another good ball game. We just saw him come off 91 yards and a touchdown in the latest ball game at the Dolphins, even though it was a blowout, losing 70-20. But right now, Sutton the number 1 option. He's healthy. He's fitting into this Sean Payton offense, and I like him once again as a start this week. Christian Kirk the next start here. So right now, it looks like Christian Kirk's that number 1 option once again. After a bad week 1, week 2, and 3, he found the end zone here for this Jacksonville Jaguar team, with Calvin Ridley not doing much in the second and third game of the year. So this week here, London ball game, Atlanta Falcons coming to town over there versus Jacksonville Jaguar team. This game could be a mini shootout. We saw Amon-Ra St. Brown get 100 yards versus this Atlanta defense in last week's ball game, and I think Christian Kirk, he could get 75 yards and find the end zone. I do expect Calvin Ridley to bounce back as well, but like I said, Christian Kirk and Trevor Lawrence have that good rapport going on from last season. Next starts Michael Pittman of the Indianapolis Colts. Michael Pittman, he's been solid so far this season. Last year was just a down year with him. Obviously, Matt Ryan for the majority of the season, where his arm strength's gone and he couldn't get Pittman the ball. But this year with Anthony Richardson and obviously Gardner Minshew, who started in Week 3's ball game, he was getting the football. He was making plays. Here's Michael Pittman, and we know he's a big-time type of receiver where he could go up, get the jump ball, he could run the routes. And this week here in a matchup versus the Los Angeles Rams, where their secondary isn't all that great as well, I think Michael Pittman once again could be a solid start and help fantasy owners as a number 2 wide receiver or flex option or a third receiver in 3 receiver leagues. Next starts Amari Cooper of the Cleveland Browns. So Amari Cooper's been a solid Brown now over the first season and change here with Cleveland, and him and Deshaun Watson is starting to get on the same page. Cooper, he's had a big game in Week 3, and this Brown team looks like they're going to lean on the pass more. Now with Nick Chubb out, obviously we saw it in the Week 3 ball game where they barely ran the football, and majority of the ball game they were passing versus the Tennessee Titans, even though I know the Titans are one of the worst teams in the league versus the pass. So right now, Amari Cooper, he can run the routes, obviously. He's a good play wide receiver, and he's just a guy that's got a knack for the end zone and definitely a player that plays better at home than he does on the road. So this week here with Baltimore coming in, I think Cooper can have a good ball game. Next starts Tank Dell of the Houston Texans. So CJ Stroud and Tank Dell, they've been on the same page early and often this season here for the 2 rookies. And Tank Dell, we know he's got that breakaway speed. We know if he can make one move, he could beat a defender, and he's gone to the end zone. So right now, though, the first few games of his NFL career, he's gotten better each and every ball game. But obviously coming off that monster ball game last week is though where he went over 100 yards in that one and found the end zone. So this week here, I know it's versus a good Pittsburgh Steelers defense, but this could be a ball game where they're chasing points early and often here. Is this Houston Texan team where Tank Dell is going to get a lot of work once again and be a big play receiver. And the final wide receiver on the list here is Adam Thielen of the Carolina Panthers. So the last couple seasons, Thielen looked like his best days are behind him, but right now he's having a resurgence here with this Carolina Panther team, a team that's going to be trailing a lot this season, where they're going to have to throw 35, 40 times per game on minimum. And Adam Thielen's coming off a monster ball game, going over 100 yards and finding the end zone. So this week here versus former team, and a revenge game in a way. I don't care what anyone says. When you versus your former team, you're going to want to have a big ball game and show them up why they made a mistake in cutting you loose. So right now, this game is not in Minnesota, it's in Carolina. But if Andy Dalton starts in this one, if Bryce Young can't make it, I think that's even better for Adam Thielen's fantasy output, because he's a veteran quarterback. He knows where to get the ball here to veteran wide receivers. And obviously, like we saw with Thielen, he went off at the Seahawks in Week 3. Now to the sits, Drake London is a sit for me in this one at Jacksonville and London. Drake London, one good game and two bad games so far this season. So right now, it's not really Drake London's fault. It's Desmond Ridder. He can't get the football to his wide receivers or tight end. He can't make the plays, and he just holds on to the football way too long. So this week here, even a pretty plus matchup versus the Jaguars, I don't see Drake London doing much, and how could you trust him here? After the first 2 out of 3 weeks, we haven't seen much out of him. So he's a sit for me. Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets is another sit for me. I know this week it's not a horrible matchup versus the Kansas City Chiefs, but once again, it's on the quarterback. Garrett Wilson, he could be a top 6-7 wide receiver, no doubt about it, in fantasy football if he had a quarterback. But Zach Wilson, one of the worst quarterbacks, if not the worst starting quarterback in all pro football. So Garrett Wilson, like I said, pretty much a touchdowns bailed him out the first 2 weeks of the season. And then last week versus New England Patriots, he just didn't do much in that ball game as Garrett Wilson. So right here versus a Chief team, even though I know they could be trailing early and often, this Jet team, where they're going to have to throw the football 40 or 50 times, he's still not really a player that I think is going to do much in this ball game, is Garrett Wilson. Because Zach Wilson, he's just scared to throw the football down the field, it seems like, and he's not doing much. And like I said, this Kansas City Chief team, the game plan is going to be to stop Wilson in this one. The next sit's Brandon Cooks of the Dallas Cowboys. So Brandon Cooks was a big offseason acquisition in a deal here for the Dallas Cowboys, but so far we haven't seen anything here from Cooks, playing the first 2 out of 3 ball games. So right now, this week here, there's a pretty tough defense in the New England Patriots, where I think they could get pressure on Dak Prescott, and they've always been a pretty decent secondary. We saw them shut down the New York Jets. We saw them play Philadelphia pretty good in Week 1 in that one. So right here, I think in Week 3, it's going to be a tougher game than people think for this Cowboys pass game. And another thing, this Cowboy offense just isn't punching the ball in the end zone. So right now, Brandon Cooks, with all those factors against him, he's a sit for me. DeAndre Hopkins, the next sit. Him and Tannehill aren't on the same page. One of the worst offensive lines in the league here, and one of the worst passing attacks in the league here is this Tennessee Titan team. Tannehill is just a quarterback that holds on to the ball a lot as well. Obviously, he's not getting a lot of time back there in the pocket, but also a lot of throws that obviously are offline and just not connecting. So I know Hopkins is getting peppered with targets and has a good matchup on paper versus Cincinnati, but he's not a wide receiver. I'm going to start this week. Next, it's Jerry Jeudy of the Denver Broncos. So Jerry Jeudy right now, in terms of yards and big opportunities, seems like the third wide receiver over there for this Denver Bronco team, behind Courtland Sutton and the rookie Marvin Mims. So Jerry Jeudy, the last few ball games, we really haven't seen much out of Jeudy. And I know this week he's got a great matchup versus the Chicago Bears, one of the worst teams in all pro football. I mean, they come off a decent ball game, 5 catches, 81 yards, but before that, not much. Week 1, he missed that ball game. And then Week 2 versus Washington, only 3 catches, 25 yards. So right now, he's a sit for me this week here is Jerry Jeudy. I think Courtland Sutton and Javonte Williams are going to be beneficial in this ball game at the Bears. And this could be a game where the Broncos are up early and often, and they try to just take it easy and run the clock out a little bit, even though I know their defense just got torched for 70 points. Next, it's Gabe Davis of the Buffalo Bills. So Gabe Davis, 2 good ball games in a row, but it's been fluky to me, in my opinion, especially the Week 3 game with only 1 catch, 35 yards, and a touchdown versus the Commanders. So this week here, big division matchup, 2-1 Bills here versus the 3-0 Miami Dolphins. And Gabe Davis, we know he's got that big play wide receiver capability, but we saw it last season with his games, he'll pop off for a huge one, and then games he doesn't do much. And last week, like I said, that touchdown bailed him out. If he just had 1 catch, 35 yards, that's not helping anyone in fantasy football, is Gabe Davis. So right now, while the targets still haven't been there First 2 out of 3 ball games, he really hasn't done much here. I know this Miami defense isn't all that great as well, but right now Gabe Davis is a sit for me with Stephon Diggs pretty much getting majority of the targets and making the big plays. Next hits Sky Moore of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Sky Moore, right now, I guess he's operating pretty much as the number one guy over there for this Chief team. Kadarius Toney, he's been banged up. We haven't seen much out of him, and Sky Moore is playing a majority of the snaps. But so far, 2 games where he didn't do much, and then week 2, he had a good one, though, at Jacksonville. 3 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown. But right now, he's tough to trust, is Sky Moore. This is a ball game where obviously Sauce Gardner could be on him a majority of the ball game. And right now, this Jet team, if they were smart, they would put Sauce Gardner either on Sky Moore or Travis Kelce in this ball game to shut him down. But like I said, I know he's playing with Patrick Mahomes, but he's still not really a wide receiver you could trust. There's not really any wide receivers, to be honest, in this Chief offense to emerge and break out to be guys you could trust besides the tight end, obviously, in Travis Kelce. But if I would have to pick one wide receiver to get going weeks down the line here and be a true number 1 option for this Chief team, in my opinion, it's Rashee Rice. But right now, Sky Moore's not the guy. And with a tough matchup, I'm shying away and sitting him in the final wide receiver. I'm looking to sit this week's Jahan Dotson of the Washington Commanders. So Jahan Dotson, we know he's a big play wide receiver. We know he could go out there and make the plays. But right now, him and Sam Howell just haven't been on the same page the first 3 weeks of the season here. And this week here, I know it's a pretty decent matchup at the Eagles. They banged up with injuries, and their secondary's given up a decent amount of points on the season. Dotson, it's already week 3, and if you're 1-2, 1-3 on the year, he's not a guy I'm going to have confidence to run out there. Week 1 versus Arizona, 5 catches, 40 yards. Week 2 with Denver, only 3 catches, 22 yards. And week 3 versus Buffalo, 2 catches, 21 yards. So right now, it's not getting the job done here for Dotson. And fantasy owners, yes, he could have a good ball game, but like I said, going off track record, in the first 3 games, he hasn't done anything. So that's wide receiver start sit here for week 4 of the fantasy football season.